Guys, this is the first ever Three Guys Walk Into a Sports Bar. This is where it's just going to be me and Nathan. Charlie's not a big sports fan, as you guys all know and heard from the podcast. But me and Nathan wanted to get some time to talk about some sports together. So what we're doing is getting together for about once every couple weeks here and talk about a game in history that maybe you guys don't remember as much. It was not a championship game, just kind of the hidden gems, the cult classics when it comes to sports. So Nathan, we're very excited for today, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm super excited. You and I, we took 5 games each, 10 total, and just kind of put them in a randomizer. And then, I'm actually very happy with the one that we got for week one. I think it's a great game. We're, of course, now doing, if you can read in the title, it's the 2004 December 9th Spurs at Rockets. It's the Tracy McGrady game.
Oh yeah, what's it? 13 points in 33 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very glad that we went back and watched it because I mean some of the players in here, and which we'll get to, it was crazy to see in their prime. There's obviously, I mean, talk about the two teams that went into this game were two completely different franchises at this time in terms of their trajectories. I mean, Spurs, obviously we know about them. I mean, they were, champions in 2003, and then obviously, spoiler alert, they go on to win it all again. But the Rockets, they were kind of rebuilding. What can you tell me about the Rockets?
So this game here kind of epitomizes like this is like a Tracy McGrady, like this is the pinnacle of his story, which is sad because he is one of the greatest scorers in the NBA history. But just kind of a brief thing on how this Rockets team was built. So McGrady decided to go sign with Orlando back in 2001, 2001. Eventually, what happened is Tracy McGrady was eventually going to get traded.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the best things that happened there, actually for the Rockets, though. So the Rockets had the number one overall pick in 2002. That's the famous draft where they picked Yao Ming. So Yao Ming is the first number one international player that never played in a U.S. College before. So that's pretty cool to find that out. So good for him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was drafted in 2002, number one overall. He's about 7'4", 7'5", Chinese guy, just dominant on the defensive end, still kind of frail. So he had to go against guys like Dikembe Mutombo, Shaq, Vlade Divac, just a lot of nasty,
Mm-hmm.
big-bodied individuals. So he was with Rudy Tomjanovich, which is a very offensive-minded coach, but he actually had to retire after their first year due to health reasons. So Jeff Van Gundy came in, and to say the Rockets didn't really try and make everything they could out of Yao Ming would be just a huge understatement. So in the offseason after Van Gundy's first year, so right before this 2004 season of the game we're talking about, they went out and acquired Tracy McGrady and Juwan Howard and Tyronn Lue. Traded for those guys, got rid of Francis, Coutinho Mobley, Kelvin Cato. But in doing that, McGrady also signed a 3-year, $63 million extension. So this is after he has won 2 scoring titles. So now you're bringing in the number one scorer to line up with your number one overall pick, who is already becoming an all-star center in the NBA.
Right.
And
But I mean,
then,
I was just gonna jump in though.
yeah.
You look at those two players, and then outside, I mean, they got Mutombo, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but the rest of the team, I think, in at least
Oh.
at the start of the season, though, is I mean, you got names like Bob Sura,
Oh
Juwan
gosh.
Howard. Ooh,
I mean, Juwan Howard he was a decade after. I mean, he's been in the league for 10 years. He was a serviceable big
right.
man, but he had a good. I mean, he is your perfect fourth best player on the team.
Yeah,
Like
right.
which is what he is.
Mm-hmm.
But to say they didn't do everything they could to help Yao by bringing in Howard, bringing in Dikembe Mutombo, having Patrick Ewing as a coach, like
Mm-hmm.
if Yao didn't become great from learning from those guys, that's a Yao problem.
Right.
And it worked. He was great. He was wonderful. And going back and watching this game, I forgot how good he really was.
Yeah, this
Uh,
might have been the first full game that I've watched with Yao Ming, and
oh,
my
really?
goodness,
Oh
my
my gosh.
goodness.
So,
Yeah.
so in this game, we have great players such as Moochie Norris, Scott Paget. My personal favorite was Ryan Bowen, which if you don't know who that is,
Mm-hmm.
he looks exactly like every white basketball player from the 50s and 60s.
One of my favorite moments, which we'll get to Steve Kerr in a second, but he talks about Bowen.
There's one thing Bowen provides, it's energy. The problem is not a great scorer, so Houston trying to make up for that in other areas.
He just calls him out on the broadcast. That's
Which,
never one thing you want the announcer to call you when you're playing a basketball game is you can't score the ball. So,
and that's not a joke either. Like the stats in this game. So number one, T-Mac and Yao scored 75% of the team's points. And also the Rockets scored only they hit 5 3-pointers in this game. 4 of those came from T-Mac.
mm-hmm.
So, to say that they didn't have any help anywhere else is like a total understatement right now. So if anyone here wants to go back and watch this game, just know ahead of time this is not the NBA giant point scoring game that you remember. These are 2 top 5 defenses going into it. This is like prime San Antonio Spurs that they're just going to score 85, 90 points, and then they're going to hold you to about 70.
Mm-hmm.
So don't go into this expecting great, awesome stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started here. First quarter.
So, I mean, going into the game, the Rockets were, 8-11? And you can tell that I don't think the city of Houston was very enthusiastic about them. I mean, the start of the game, most basketball games at the start aren't full, but, starting off and then pretty much for, I'd say, a majority of the game, at least in the lower bowl, which we saw, maybe only half full, max.
Well, so at the start of the broadcast, they say after a delay, we finally get started. I was never
that's
able
true.
to find what that delay was. So I don't know if there was a weather issue going on or if there was like a leak from the roof maybe, or
maybe just a really late start or
yeah,
something.
I don't know.
Decided to go home.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
have no idea. But yeah, no, you're right. There was no, for a Spurs team that just won a title a couple years ago and also is going to become like, the
Mm-hmm.
team of the decade, if we're being honest. I'm surprised there weren't more fans.
And you got to think, too, the Rockets, say what you will about their team in the past, but you have a rising phenom in Yao Ming. You just acquired T-Mac. Like, this is a Rockets team to possibly get excited about. Even though
absolutely.
rocky start, but you'd think, they'd come out a little more. But they didn't miss much in this first quarter, in this first half, really. Especially in this first quarter. What a sloppy mess of a game this was.
Yeah. So I did have a few highlights. I was trying to be nice. But it was overall some bad play. But with 10:55 left, dude, Yao had a great putback dunk that kind of first like solidified like, okay, this dude is still like it was a nice first good points to get started with the game, which was great. But there's not a whole lot of points here to talk about. So one of my favorite things with 7:58 left, Ginobili hits a 3-pointer, and his hair. My gosh,
good hair.
I'm used to Ginobili with the bald spot and then going bald, like to the bald spot to the point on where the NBA 2K games had him as a bald spot.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is they're coming back from commercial. Craig Sager, which talk about Craig Sager's there, which is awesome. Rest in peace, but he was amazing on the side. I always had the best suits. But they were talking about Tim Duncan ever since he was a rookie in '97. Apparently, the Spurs team have never lost 3 in a row at home. Yes. And going into and then I guess the night before they lost to, this is if you want to date yourself, they lost to the Seattle Supersonics. They still existed.
Yep.
That were
I saw
led by
pull up. I was like, whoa.
led by Ray Allen.
Yeah.
I guess that was our first home loss in like 21 games.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like mind-boggling that they've never lost 3 in a row at home since Tim Duncan was a rookie in '97. So this is 7-8 years later.
Yeah. This is a good team, even though the first half was here. I have a sequence of events that I mapped out. So with 5:22 left in the first quarter, the score is 8-10.
Gosh.
Spurs up top. Yeah, right. This is where we at in the game so far. So Duncan misses a shot, right? Rockets rebound. Then Yao misses a shot. Spurs rebound. Malik Rose misses. Rockets rebound. T-Mac misses. Spurs rebound. Duncan turns the ball over. And then Reese Gaines turns the ball over. Then Tony Parker misses a shot. T-Mac turns the ball over. Tony Parker gets a traveling, and then T-Mac finally hits a shot. And I wish I could say that 2 minutes was just like a single 2-minute thing in the first quarter. No, that happened 2 minutes here, and then somebody would get fouled, hit some free throws, and then another 2 minutes where it's just the sloppiest thing you've ever seen.
Can I tell you what I actually wrote down verbatim for what you're talking about?
Yes.
So I have the timestamps, and I have bad pass, Parker missed layup, holy crap, this is awful, traveling, oh my gosh, this is bad.
Well, going back to, I think I wrote it down. Yes, during that, Marv Albert says,
Jeff Van Gundy does not mind this style of play.
And then Steve Kerr brilliantly responds with,
"Oh, I do."
And then before we end the first quarter here, just kind of a small thing. If you don't know how great Bruce Bowen was as a defender, he held McGrady to 2-9 in the first quarter. And I'll talk about him a little bit later in the start of the fourth. But holy crap, dude, that dude is just in your face. He makes McGrady uncomfortable the whole time. McGrady could never get a good shot. And when he did, he wasn't in rhythm yet, so he was missing wide open shots. And But yeah, so end of the first quarter, Houston was leading with a gentleman's 18-12. So getting into the second quarter now, this is where it picked up a little bit. I actually this reminded me more of like Spurs basketball that I was used to. It was a lot of Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
These two just kind of found their rhythm with each other. So I was actually really excited about that one. But my favorite part, here's the best part. So at the start of the quarter, you have 4 bench guys, plus I believe Tony Parker in the game. With 10:50 left in the quarter, so only a minute 20 has gone by, or a minute 10, sorry. Popovich gets mad of all the players that are in there, and he puts all the starters right back in. Barely get a break. And they've had just that dude gets so mad so quick. There are moments later in the game we'll talk about, but oh my gosh, like not even a little over a minute. Yes. He goes ahead and he's just like, you know what, I'm over this. Starters back in the game.
I will say, to his credit, he looks pretty much exactly the same as he does now.
Just he's a little less Ray Liotta skin, but he hasn't changed. You're right.
Because I mean, when you look at how the game ended, you would think that the Spurs were, pretty dominating in this game, that they had the lead for most of it, which isn't true. I mean, the Rockets not only had the lead for most of the game, it was a back and forth game all the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Fun moment here. Bob Sura had like a interview off the side, or not on the side. Sorry, it's a pre-game interview.
Yeah,
and he is wearing this awesome early 2000s visor, cockeyed. And I was just like, oh man, were we all like that? So Yao Ming, number one, surprised me. I forgot how good of a free throw shooter he was. He was like 80% going into this game.
Yeah,
but he also can. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
some stats about that actually. So Yao Ming, this night, the night of the game, he was 9 for 10 free throw. For his entire career, he's 83.3%, which is second highest among 7-foot plus players, behind Dirk Nowitzki, who has 87.7.
And he doesn't count because he's
it's Dirk.
Yeah, it's Dirk. But there's a moment. It's right in the middle of the quarter where Yao Ming just has this nice little pull-up jumper over Tony Massenberg. It's just like, dude, this dude can play below the rim. This dude can shoot mid-range jumpers. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do to this guy? Cool, awesome moment. So this is kind of what I feel like the Rockets were envisioning. With about 2 minutes left, there was a great just moment where it's like Yao Ming set a screen, T-Mac went off the screen and just hit this jumper. And I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what the Rockets were hoping to see all the time.
Right. I mean, but if you asked me, or if you told me at the end of watching this first half, that I'd be watching probably one of the greatest basketball games, at least in the past 20 years, I would have thought you're crazy.
This whole second half, dude, I watched this game twice,
Yeah.
and this second half had me on the edge of my seat. It was kind of crazy how good this was.
I mean, so you mentioned that Tim Duncan tried to dunk on Yao Ming earlier. He nails a dunk on Yao Ming in the third quarter, though. That was one of my favorite highlights of the whole game.
That one was great. This is another one I had actually started the third quarter. Yao Ming actually hit a turnaround jumper from the baseline.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this dude doing? This was the Tim Duncan quarter, as you were talking about. The dude, 12 points, 3 blocks, hit some 4 for 5 from the line. But if you don't realize,
machine.
Oh my gosh, ended the game with what, 17, 18?
I think it was 18.
Oh my gosh. But one of my favorite things that I saw here was actually Yao Ming on the defensive ender in this whole quarter was ridiculous. He was altering shots, but it was also Tim Duncan being like super persistent that I'm gonna figure you out. And there's a lot of Tim Duncan just up and under, getting some putbacks, and just really like, I'm gonna make you foul me. I'm gonna get to the line, or I'm gonna beat you. Like I'm gonna beat Yao Ming. And it was a super fun big man game to watch, where it's like, instead of two big guys bruising at each other, it's the most fragile centers trying to outsmart one each other. At the end of this third quarter, this is where we need to bring up Devin Brown. So with 3:06 and 2:26, he hits back-to-back shots. Both of these are 2-pointers with his toe barely on that 3-point line. If he just scoots his foot back half an inch,
we're not talking about this game today.
This game doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, no.
Oh my gosh! Like, I mean, you go back and look at that, and you're just like, dude, what? Fix your shot. If you see you're a 3-point line, the worst shot in basketball is taking a 3-pointer with half a toe on that 3-point line. That's the worst shot in basketball.
This lead that the Rockets would have to eventually overcome was a 15-2 run from the Spurs. Most of it was led by him. I mean, he led the charge on that. There's no way that the Spurs don't get up by that much without him.
Oh yeah, no, he ended the game, I believe, with 20 points.
Something like that.
It was ridiculous. So we're going to jump into the fourth quarter here. This is pretty much where everything happens. So at the very beginning of the quarter, T-Mac finally shows up. So he has a nice drive to the basket, and then next possession, he hits an awesome fadeaway, and then timeout by Popovich, and immediately Bruce Bowen is back in guarding T-Mac.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, there was also a moment too. So we haven't talked about him yet. Rashon Nesterovic, big Eastern European guy. Played for the Raptors for a little bit, but then he's kind of jumped around from team to team. But he did find a home. He was always a serviceable, like, big body, could play defense. Never really known for his scoring, but could hit like a mid-range jumper if he needed. But there's a fast break with about 10:43 left, and this could have definitely, after the two T-Mac shots at the beginning, this definitely could have like started a nice momentum for the Rockets and maybe pulled ahead with a little bit more of a lead and wouldn't have to make this comeback. Nesterovic blocked this fast break layup, and it halted every ounce of momentum the Rockets gained. And I just remember seeing that, and it was great. It was wonderful.
I mean, on paper, the Spurs should have not only won this game, they should have won by a lot.
Yeah, no, their defense was great, but they just, for some reason, Tony Parker couldn't hit anything. Besides Devin Brown, they didn't get anything from the bench. I mean, nothing from that bench player. I don't know if they were missing anyone in that game, but they just didn't have.
Right.
I mean, yeah, so they were just getting nothing from the bench besides Brown.
Want to get to it? Let's get to it.
We're going to start with the Bob Sura airball.
That's the only place that we should start with.
Cool. You know what, Nathan? I'm going to let your storytelling go take over.
So what little fans were left or were there to begin with in the stands, I still think that they had some level of hope because this shot from Bob Sir came at do you know the exact time?
126.
126. So it's unlikely that they come back and win, but it's possible with a couple 3-pointers starting now. Bob Sir, he's wide open. He takes the pass. He is wide open. You cannot be more wide open in the NBA. And it doesn't even make it to the rim. It touches the bottom of the net as it falls through. It is a complete and total air ball. And then everyone just starts booing. Everyone starts leaving. It's just it made me uncomfortable how bad that not only that shot was, but just the reaction from the crowd. It was just very like oof, like it makes my skin crawl.
Everything deflated. Like if you're a fan, it's similar to, maybe you're down 8 points in a football game and that quarterback throws an interception with 2.5 minutes left. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure right after that shot, Marv Albert basically called the game. He said,
Houston Rockets on the way to dropping to 8-12. They're playing game 3 of a long homestand, 6-game stand in the stretch, playing 9 of 10 at home.
Yep.
Meanwhile, like there's still over a minute, so who knows? But
I mean, and then this is where you start playing the foul game. Some Yao Ming fouls Duncan. So he also, in this moment, goes 1 for 2 at the line. So there's another extra point that the Spurs missed out on. So far we're talking about 3 points between that free throw and the 2 long Devin Brown 2s that Spurs just missed out on right there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, after the free throws where he went 1 and 2, T-Mac kind of just decided to take the game in his own hands and drove straight to the basket. It didn't go, but I mean, luckily one of the tallest men, the tallest man on the court, easily by far,
right,
standing right there to just basically, like I said earlier, barely jumped, just put it right in.
Right. So that cut it to 8. And then on the inbound pass, Scott Padgett, yes, the Scott Padgett, feels the inbound pass and dunks it right away. So in 5 seconds, it goes from a 10-point game to a 6-point game. And during this, an angry Popovich calls the timeout, calm everyone down, get everything settled. So this is standard basketball. Inbound pass is made. Devin Brown makes both free throws, goes back to 8, and then history's about to begin. So the Spurs called a timeout, get fouled on the inbounds. Devin Brown makes free throws, and from here on out, like it's your normal, gonna get fouled, shoot free throws, hopefully just kind of keep that lead going.
Because you'd think with how little time's left on the clock, typically when it's a fouling it towards the end of the game, most of the time the team just makes it and then the game's over. But then when you know that there's a comeback, like how there is right now, you'd think, oh, well, then the Spurs probably just missed all their free throws. But from that 1-2 that we just talked about, they went 6 for 6 in free throw shooting.
Yeah.
Starting now. Like they nailed all of them.
They did exactly what they were supposed to do, except for the final play, which we'll get to. So after Brown made those free throws, 8-point lead, McGrady goes down and just takes a 3 from the top of the key that was –
and he was smothered.
It was the worst shot. I mean, I get it. You're just trying to score points, but that was like the worst shot you could have ever seen. It was awful, but cuts it to 5.
Yeah, goes in.
Brown gets fouled again, makes his 2 free throws. And then McGrady goes down, does a pump fake, does a pump fake on Tim Duncan, gets him in the air, just throws it at the basket out of heave-ho.
I feel like we're going to be saying this a lot in the next few minutes, but how any of these shots went in, it's just incredible. Like that ball had no business going into the hoop.
He had 1 3 that I was like, you know what? That was an open shot. I'll give him one of those. So, but he goes up. Duncan fouls him, and the basket goes in. So it's the rare 4-point play and the foul by the most reliable basketball player of all time, Tim Duncan. So, and then all of a sudden, so the Spurs get fouled again. Duncan makes both of his free throws. Then McGrady goes down and then just does a pull-up 3 again near the top of the key above Brown and just hits it with 11 seconds left. And then the Spurs call another timeout. Now, I think this was the timeout prior, but there was a timeout where even though they got the ball inbounds and they got fouled and made the free throws, apparently it wasn't the right play.
Yeah. Was it the one that Tim Duncan went to the line, I think?
I think so, but I just remember Ginobili
Yeah.
went to the bench.
Yeah,
And
he was yelling at Ginobili's coming off the court like, "Oh wow, we're gonna win this game. This is awesome. We got fouled. We're gonna hit our free throws." And then Pop did not like that.
I'm gonna let you take over. This is the final 2 plays here.
Okay. So after that next 3, so we're waiting for the inbound. We have 11 seconds left, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Spurs pass the ball in. We're expecting a foul or something, but the player falls down.
Now this is where we're going to bring up again Devin Brown.
Devin Brown.
This guy has a game of a lifetime, and that's what he's going to be known for in this game.
He's the guy that falls down. And then so the Rockets get the ball, and of course, whose hands does it end up in? The guy we're talking about, T-Mac.
Mm-hmm.
He goes down to the court, and there's 2-3 guys on him, but he knows what he's going to do. This is the shot that I think was probably the most implausible, just based off of the speed he was going down the court, the amount of defenders that were on him.
If you also watch the replay where they have kind of show his face, his head is down. He's going straight to a spot. He's not looking for an open man. He's not looking for anything. He's like, I have the ball. There's a certain spot I want to get to because I'm going to make it from this spot.
This is just when the basketball gods took over in this last minute and willed him to have one of the most impressive individual performances, I think, possibly ever, at least in terms of a final minute of a game.
Oh, absolutely. So we're gonna go ahead and pause here, and we're gonna let you guys hit play, and we're gonna just show you this clip of this final play real fast because you guys just need to feel it. You need to feel all 14 members of the crowd getting excited, and then afterwards, confetti falls.
Yep.
And the building is going crazy. You would have thought this team just won the title. So go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and show you that clip right now.
Make things difficult for Brent Barry, gets it in. Devin Brown lost it. Here comes McGrady. No timeouts remaining. McGrady for the win. Yeah!
Apparently, so I was actually watching, this is an interview with Van Gundy and T-Mac. This is on The Jump, like a decade later. Apparently, after the game, Van Gundy, who apparently is not Mr. like, yay, hoorah, was in the locker room, and he told them all, this win was a joke. You guys played horrible through this game. We have a lot to work on.
I mean, he's not wrong. Yeah.
No, he's not wrong. Because that shouldn't have happened. No. This game shouldn't have happened.
I mean, I don't want to sound like the bad guy here, but am I crazy to think that he just got incredibly lucky? Like, incredibly lucky?
Yeah. I mean, that's all it really was.
I mean, his overall shooting, including field goal and three-pointer, is 43.5. And he nailed 4 3-pointers within a 30-second span. I don't care who it is. Could be Steph Curry for all I know. Larry Bird. No one's doing that.
No.
Without a little bit of luck on their side.
He was a 6'7" Allen Iverson.
Yes.
So after the game, so this is kind of like the fallout from the season. So the Rockets actually did end up going to win 51 games that year, which is awesome. In a loaded West that was good enough for a 5 seed, where they did end up losing to the Mavericks in 7 in the first round. So the Dirk Nowitzki Mavericks. And then the Spurs that season did end up going on to win the championship. They beat the Pistons, who are in their second finals in a row. Pistons, I'm just so mad at them. So mad at them. But they did win that series in 7. The sad part of this is Tracy McGrady was amazing. One of the best scorers ever. He will always be remembered for this regular season game, and then he'll always be remembered because he, as a player, in his entire career, never played in a second round of the playoffs.
It's a shame.
It is. The Rockets would go on. They would lose in every first round that they were in, except for in 2007. They did get to the second round, but McGrady was hurt that year. And so he didn't play in that one. And that was when Yao Ming was at prime Yao Ming. And they ended up losing that series, I believe, in 6 to the Lakers. Thank you guys for joining us on this. Like I said, we'll have these going out there probably every couple of weeks. Join us for our next game. We're actually going to be revisiting the Week 1 2019 New Orleans Saints and Houston Texans.
Which let me preface that it might not sound as special, but it is actually. There's a lot of great underlying storylines in that game that I think are incredibly interesting, and it's just a really great game.
Oh gosh, I remember it. I remember that last 3.5-4 minutes, and I'm excited to rewatch it here.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, review. If you want to talk to us down in the comments below, we always do. We'll respond to you guys. We like to interact with you guys. Be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter. Go ahead and send us, if you guys have any games that you guys want us to review, send us an email at 3menwalkintoabar, the number 3menwalkintoabar at gmail.com. And we'll see you guys next time. Bar's closed.